Good morning and welcome to my blog, Wisdom for Today. I'm so glad that you decided to visit me today. Amidst all your other obligations and those long lists, to-do lists, I have a couple of them myself. I'm so glad you decided to stop and hear a word from the Lord. You know, I just got home from vacation, and you'd be surprised how much mail there was to sort through. And even though I wasn't there, how much housework had to be done and things put away. And while I was unpacking, I was listening to the news, and I felt a pit grow in my stomach because I hadn't listened to the news all week, but it seemed like the world had just gotten worse while I was on vacation. Jesus told us that there would be a time where there would be wars and rumors for wars. But it's still frightening we're in the midst of those rumors and those talks. And I'm not just talking about wars and rumors of wars around the world, but even within our own nation, it seems like people want to take up arms against each other. But let me assure you today that you have a peace that's stronger than anyone's anxiety, that's stronger than the strife in this world. You know, as we were getting off the plane, there was a man who started to loudly talk about politics, and everybody got quiet. No one dared challenge him because they didn't want to have a fight. And we were crowded. It was an overnight flight, and it was late, and we were tired. But as he prattled on about whatever his belief system was, I thought of that passage in Proverbs 17, 1 through 2, that says, "Better is a dry crust with peace and quiet than a full house with feasting where there's strife. Better be alone and in quiet than be with all the people you love and there be unresolved conflict." So how are we supposed to offer witness for peace in a world that's constantly claiming war? Well, the Bible gives us a couple of good answers to that. The first one is by keeping our mind set on Christ. In Isaiah 26, 3 through 4, it says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust you. Trust in the Lord forever. For the Lord is the rock eternal." Now that just doesn't mean thinking about Jesus. It means understanding that our ultimate happiness, indeed the happiness of all humanity, isn't dependent upon us. It's not dependent on politicians or leaders or princes. The ultimate peace is dependent on God. God's authority transcends all the wars within this world. And God can give peace in the midst of a war-torn situation. So we keep our minds set on that. And that eases us of some of the anxiety that we've got to fix everything and everyone, because we understand that God is ultimately in control. The second way that we have peace or create a witness of peace in a world of strife is by listening to God and not allowing ourselves to be caught up in other people's drama. In Psalms 85, 8 through 3, the psalmist is talking to God, and he says, "I will listen to what God will say." And he promises peace to his people, to his saints. But then it says this important sentence, "But don't let them return to folly." And he goes on to say, "Surely God's salvation is near for those who reverence him, and his glory that all may dwell in the land. Love and faithfulness meet together, righteousness and peace kiss. Faithfulness springs forth from the earth, and righteousness looks down from heaven. God will indeed give what is good to our land, and it will yield a harvest." Righteousness, and the same word in Hebrew for righteousness is justice, goes before him, and he prepares his step. Again, we have this thought that God is ultimately in control, and I ought not to take up arms or put myself at risk when I understand that God's kingdom comes through love and comes through proclamation, and not through taking over anything by force. God's peace comes to us through his love, and we ought not to turn to folly by trying to make that peace on our own. And lastly, the way we represent peace on this earth that's full of strife, as we put away all of our hidden agendas and realize we don't have to win every argument. Now, in the book of James, there seem to be some literal wars that have broken out. We don't know if people actually took up arms, but we know they were fighting hard enough that James said, "Why is there wars and strife amongst you?" And then he tries to say how their worship for God is hypocrisy if it's interwoven with strife and anger against someone else that sees things differently than they do. In James 3, 9 through 18, the book of James says, "With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men who are made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth comes praise and cursings. My brothers and sisters, this ought not to be. Can fresh water and salt water flow out of the same stream? Brothers and sisters, can a fig tree bear olives, or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. Who is wise and understanding among you?" So in this world where there's all these different opinions, listen to James's words of wisdom. First of all, we don't hate those who disagree with us. That's never helpful. And then he says this, "Who is wise and has understanding among you, let him show it by a good life, by deeds done in humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter, selfish ambitions in your hearts, do not boast about it and deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, and of the devil. For when you have envy and selfish ambition, there's every kind of disorder that evil could practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is both pure, peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy, good fruit, and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace will raise a harvest of righteousness." And as I said before, that word righteousness also means justice. I think of St. Francis of Assisi, who once said, "Preach Christ at all times, and if necessary, sometimes use words." Christ is preached when we're gentle and we're kind. Elsewhere in the book of James, the prophet says, the apostle says, "Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak." I think that's a good way to be witnesses for Jesus Christ. There is a peace in God that you can tap into, even in your hardest times. And I do pray that you're on a daily basis reading the scriptures and asking God to enjoy his peace and giving your anger over to him for short periods of time if you have a long wound that needs to be healed for a while. But I also pray that you're a witness for peace, and that's stepping out of the fray of argumentation and of wars and rumors of wars, and proclaiming justice by your actions. I'm looking forward to seeing you this Sunday. God's blessings, and have a great day.